What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Sidelined, Episode 8. We have a special edition Halloween episode. Just want to say happy Halloween to all our Sidelined fans out there. Shout out Justin Loretti, our number one fan. He likes and he watches every video. Happy Halloween, Justin. Before we get going, remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment, support the channel. Wilco Media, let's go. NFL, my 3 takeaways. My first takeaway is the NFC East has the 2 best teams in the NFC, the Cowboys and the Eagles. These 2 teams are juggernauts. The Eagles are the only undefeated team left in the league. They wiped their ass with Pittsburgh this week. It was a blowout. It was crazy. They're undefeated. They are rolling, and they play confident. You can tell they're having fun. They're playing confident. They're flying on defense, flying on offense. The Eagles look great. And the Cowboys' defense may be the best in the league. They got playmakers. Micah Parsons, Diggs. Now that Dak's back, the offense is rolling a little bit. They're really good at running the ball. It also helps that the rest of the NFC is not very good. Those are the 2 best teams in the NFC, Cowboys, Eagles. My second takeaway is the Jets need a real quarterback. It was very apparent this week more than any other because the Jets were rolling. Their defense, they have a lot of playmakers. Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner. You get a bunch of dudes on offense, running backs, and receivers, and that had been enough to win these past couple of weeks. This week, they needed a quarterback because Zach Wilson is garbage. He was awful. He looks like a bust. He looks like a deer in fucking headlights. He has no idea what he's doing. He looks terrible. They need a real quarterback, and if they get a real quarterback, I think they should make some real noise in the league. My third takeaway, the Raiders are a fucking embarrassment to the league. They really are. I mean, it's a fucking joke at this point. They were picked by a lot of people to not only win the division, make a Super Bowl run, make a deep playoff. People with the Raiders is one of the best teams going in the league. They got shut out by the Saints. Fucking Andy Dalton, the gingerbread man. I mean, they got shut out by a terrible New Orleans Saints team. They're 2-4. I don't know what's good. They can't. Their offense was supposed to be unbelievable. They didn't score a single point. The Saints blow. The Raiders blow. They are an embarrassment. I think the Raiders are the most embarrassing team in the league this season. All right, let's get into each game by game. My top 5 games of the week. NFL, Week 8. Let's get into it. All right, first game was a Thursday night football game. This is Buccaneers-Ravens. Another tough day for Tom. Actually, a tough week for Tom. He officially came out with a statement announcing his divorce with Giselle. And you know what? Good for him. Because I've been thinking about maybe he came back to get away from the family. You know, I mean, I got to be honest. You know, you have your whole life to spend with your wife and kids. If I want to get out, I want to get away from them. You know, who wants to sit at home all day with their kid? It's so bullshit. When everyone retires, I spend more time with my family. What are you, fucking crazy? I do anything I can to get away from my family. Are you fucking nuts? But, not good for Tom. They look really good in the first drive, and I'm like, all right, maybe this is, kind of the resurrection. No, it didn't work out. Baltimore won. Bucs continue to struggle. Brady looks more frustrated than he ever has. This is the first time in his career any of his teams have ever been 2 games below 500 with him as a starter. With that said, I do think they'll win the division because they play in the worst division in the entire league. The Falcons are 4-4 right now. They'll beat out the Falcons. But if they want to win a Super Bowl, they got a lot of catching up to do before the season's end. Not good for Tampa Bay or Brady. Maybe actually good for Brady. Good for him. Giselle kind of looks like a man sometimes. All right, second game, Pats-Jets. I'll go Patriots first. This, they grinded out this win. The defense made a lot of plays, a lot of them thanks to Zach Wilson. Jacoby Myers or Ramondre Stevenson, I think those are the 2 best players on their offense. Maybe top 3 with Judon players overall. But it was a good win over a Jets, a team that was rolling in New York. But this makes the Bears' loss sting more because they're 4-4 right now. And if they beat the Bears, which they fucking should have, at home versus Justin Fields, they'd be 5-3 in a good spot to make a playoff run. That was a game they needed, but you really needed this game because if you dropped this game, I think they would have been out of contention, 3-5, 4-4. It was a big win. They can put together wins versus the Colts and the Jets again. You'll be looking at 6-4, so they're in good shape with this win, but that loss definitely stung. As for the Jets, Zach Wilson had his head so far up his fucking ass you couldn't see the light of day. I mean, this guy was so bad. I think he's going to be out of the league soon, a backup. He just looks terrible. I was never a believer in him. I mean, he played at fucking BYU. He lost to Coastal Carolina. Shout out Sam Reed. That's where he went. I do like their defense. I like all their weapons. But if they want to go anywhere, the Jets need a real quarterback. I think they should move on from Zach Wilson after this season and maybe even draft someone this upcoming NFL draft. Next game, Seahawks-Giants. I think maybe the biggest surprise of this season, other than the Giants, Geno Smith has the Seattle Seahawks 5-3. Geno Smith has been a career backup, and he has been playing the best football of his entire career. He actually looks like a good, competent NFL quarterback. I don't know what they've tapped into there. They got Metcalf, they got Lockett, Kenny Walker has really emerged, and they beat a rolling Giants team. They're 5-3. Geno's playing better than Russ. I mean, I don't want to say they can make a playoff run, but, I mean, they beat the Chargers, they beat the Giants. They're beating playoff teams, so good for Seattle. They've been a really nice story here. And I think also the NFC East is the best division in the league. The Giants have been rolling. They only have 2 losses, and now they're going to be in 3rd place behind Dallas and Philadelphia. That's crazy. If they were in the NFC South, they'd be in 1st. They're in 3rd. It's crazy because that division is usually kind of a shit show. Someone different wins every year. This year it's a strong division, and it's kind of cool to see because they're all very relevant franchises with great fan bases. My next takeaway from this game is the 49ers own the Rams. It's kind of ridiculous at this point. Every time these two teams play, the Niners ram the Rams, except in the playoff game when Jimmy G, last year he had some bad interceptions. They lost. But the 49ers got back on track. C-Mac had an amazing day. Ayuk has finally found his stride. Kittle's healthy. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't fuck up too bad. If Jimmy G cannot fuck up and not throw bad picks, the Niners will be there at the end of the day in the NFC, partly because of how weak the conference is. But this was a good game for the Niners to get back on track. The Rams are looking more and more like a one-hit wonder. I think they're your classic team. They win the Super Bowl. They get hot one year, and they never go back because they look like dog crap this year. The offense last year was a juggernaut. They can't get anything going. Cooper Kupp's really the only guy producing. They can't protect Stafford. He looks like he's seen his best years coming off last season. The defense isn't as good last year, even though they got Ramsey, even though they got Aaron Donald, Bobby Wagner. It's weird because their roster is still kind of loaded. But I don't know. I just think they're a mentally weak team that folds easy, and I would not pick them to do anything this season. All right, next game. This was a Sunday night football game. I mean, I think we all saw this coming. Buffalo rolled over the Packers. Josh Allen's that dude. He made 2 plays on their first scoring drive that I don't think any other quarterback can make in the league except him and maybe Patrick Mahomes. There was one when he rolled out left, ran about 20 yards. He took a big hit from some guy, stood over him. And then the next play, too, he rolled out left again. The safety or the corner came down, and he just, dumped it off to Dawson Knox. He's so hard to defend. He's the front runner for MVP. Frankly, I think he's running away with it, him and Mahomes. And I think the Bills it's their league to lose this year. The Packers are reeling on the other end. Aaron Rodgers looks frustrated. He's not playing his best, but also their defense isn't as good as everyone thought it was going to be. They have really no weapons on offense other than the running backs. I think this is officially a lost season for Green Bay. I don't even think they'll make the playoffs, and I think Aaron Rodgers has pretty much given up at this point. He's just satisfied collecting checks. All right, next we're going to end it off with everyone's favorite segment, Sweet and Sour. Give you 3 sweet players, 3 sour players from this week, NFL Week 8 for fantasy football. Let's get into it. My first sweet this week is A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles. He went nuclear this week. He had 3 touchdowns, 156 yards, 6 receptions. He had over 30 fantasy points, and he just looked like a man amongst boys this week. It was unbelievable. He's been having a good year all season long, but this year he really took off. He's emerged as the wide receiver 1. He's always been for Philadelphia, but you don't have to worry about Devontae Smith taking catches away from him. A.J. Brown's that dude. Hurts is feeding him the ball more. He was, a lot of people worried about him as a fantasy pick this year, going to Philadelphia because Hurts, didn't throw it around as much. Last year with Devontae Smith, he was inconsistent. But A.J. Brown has been that guy. He's just an elite athlete, and he's emerged as the guy in Philadelphia. He's trending upwards. He's sweet this week. My number one sour is Courtland Sutton. He's a good I really like Courtland Sutton. He's a good player. He's not completely terrible. You're not dropping him in fantasy leagues, but I think we're at the point now where you can't start him. He started off the season doing decent, but the last couple of weeks, he's done nothing. And the last couple of weeks, Jerry Jeudy has emerged as getting more targets, more receptions, just producing more than Sutton has. And it also hurts Sutton that the Broncos suck, their offense is terrible, and Russell Wilson is not playing very good. Now, granted, this could change if they start to click later on in the year. I don't anticipate it. I'm not dropping him yet, but I'm definitely not starting Courtland Sutton. All right, my next sweet is Tony Pollard. Finally, Tony Pollard has his chance to take off in the Cowboys backfield with Zeke hurt this week. Zeke didn't play this week. I mean, and he, surpassed expectations. He had 3 touchdowns, over 130 yards of offense. He had over 32 fantasy points. Everyone knew this was going to happen, too. In my opinion, Tony Pollard is the best running back on the Cowboys. I love Zeke. I'm a big Ezekiel Elliott fan, but his best days are behind him. Pollard looks fresher. He looks faster. And he just looks better. He looks clean. He doesn't look like he takes hard hits. And I think now he got more touches the week before. He owned the backfield this week. Going forward, keep an eye on the touches for the Cowboys backfield. But you definitely keep Tony Pollard, and maybe even you could start him going forward, depending on how much they use Zeke. Tony Pollard, sweet this week. My next sour is Deontay Johnson. This pains me because I drafted him in a lot of my leagues because I thought he'd be the guy in Pittsburgh. Maybe Pickett would get going. Well, Pittsburgh is really bad. Pickett does not look good, and their offense just does nothing. No one on Pittsburgh offense is doing anything, and I don't think you can really start anyone on that offense in fantasy, not even Najee Harris. Deontay Johnson is a really good player. He's got great hands. He catches everything. He gets a lot of targets. He just doesn't get any yards. He hasn't had a double-digit fantasy week in a while. You can't play him at this point. He doesn't even break double digits anymore. He was drafted as a wide receiver, too. You get to bench Deontay Johnson until further notice. All right, my last sweet this week is DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, this is a guy, frankly, who was disrespectful. He was drafted really late in drafts. It was disrespectful to a future Hall of Famer. He's been a top 3 wide receiver taken in fantasy for the last 5-6 years. And he had a little bit of a down year last year, but a lot of it was because of injuries. And he got suspended for 6 games this year. So with those 2 things combined, he was taken as a backup wide receiver. The past 2 games, he's been fucking unbelievable. 2 stellar weeks right out of his suspension. And Marquise Hollywood-Brown was put on IR. DeAndre Hopkins is back to being a wide receiver 1. And if you drafted him as like a wide receiver 2, flex option, you were looking like a genius because he is taken off in the Cardinals offense these past couple of weeks. My last sour, James Conner, the running back for the Cardinals. Partly not all his fault because of injuries. He's been hurt for most of the year, but you had to know that drafting him because injuries have plagued him his entire career. He's never really been healthy. He had a really good second half of the season last year, and that's why he was taken high in drafts as running back too. I didn't touch him because I kind of thought that was a mirage, and he's always hurt. I think both were right when he's played this year. He hasn't done much, and he's been hurt a ton. And when he comes back, I feel like it's going to be one of those things. He's out of the lineup. He's splitting carries with Eno Benjamin, Darrell Williams. I'm not trusting James Conner. And frankly, I think he's a bad draft pick this year. Although I understand it because it gets tricky after running back ones. James Conner, not looking great going forward. And those are my 3 sweet, 3 sour for this week of fantasy football, NFL Week 8. That's all we got for this week's segment, this week's episode. Remember, like, subscribe, leave a comment. It really helps the channel. This episode will be dropping tonight on Halloween, and we have the Movie Mob back every Friday night, 6 p.m. Local media. How you doing?